ecosystem. Utah State Representative Mike Knoll said Tuesday that he wants to use the fire near the ski town of Bryan Head to highlight the imbalance of power afforded environmental groups under previous presidents and ease bureaucratic and legal blockades for logging companies. He said he believes the Trump administration will provide a more receptive audience for his plea. Authorities say the Utah fire was started on June 17th by someone using a torch tool to burn weeds on private land. Knoll contends that it wouldn't have spread as fast if federal forest lands had been cleared of dead trees. A video of his Monday rant against environmentalists sparked new debate about whether logging could help prevent western wildfires. He joined several other state and county officials in speaking out. When we turn the Forest Service over to the bird and bunny lovers and the tree huggers and the rock lickers, we've turned our history over, Knoll said. We're going to use our wildlife and we're going to lose our wildlife and we're going to lose our scenery, the very thing you people wanted to try to protect. It's just plain stupidity. Mark Finney, a researcher at the U.S. Forest Service Fire Science Laboratory in Missoula, Montana, said getting rid of the dead trees in the Bryan Head area probably would not have made much difference. If we're looking for someone to blame, there isn't anyone, Finney said. Forests burn. Stiff winds and high temperatures have made the Utah blaze the largest in the nation at 78 square miles. The cost of fighting the fire has reached $11 million. Paul?
Moving back to Washington, the Trump administration moved Tuesday to roll back an Obama administration policy that protected more than half the nation's streams from pollution, but drew attacks from farmers, fossil fuel companies, and property rights groups as federal overreach. The 2015 regulations sought to settle a debate over which waterways are covered under the Clean Water Act, which has dragged on for years and remained murky despite 2 Supreme Court rulings. President Donald Trump issued an executive order in February instructing the Environmental Protection Agency and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to rescind or revise the Obama rule, which environmentalists say is essential to protecting water for human consumption and wildlife. In a statement, the agency announced plans to begin the withdrawal process, describing it as an interim step. When it is completed, the agency said, they will undergo a broader review of which waters should fall under federal jurisdiction. We are taking significant action to return power to the states and provide regulatory certainty to our nation's farmers and businesses, EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt said, adding that the reevaluation would be thoughtful, transparent, and collective with other agencies and the public. Environmental groups denounced the move, saying it would remove drinking water safeguards for 1 in 3 Americans while jeopardizing thousands of streams that flow into larger rivers and lakes, plus wetlands that filter pollutants and soak up flood waters. Clean water is vital to our ecology, our health, and our quality of life, said John Rumpler, senior attorney for Environmental America. Repealing the Clean Water Rule turns the mission of the EPA on its head. The EPA and the Army Corps said dismantling the Obama rule would not change existing practices because the measure has been stayed by the Sixth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in Cincinnati in response to opponents' lawsuits. The proposed repeal is the latest in a series of Trump moves to undo President Barack Obama's environmental legacy, including withdrawal from the Paris Climate Change Accord, rescinding the Clean Power Plan that sought to curb carbon emissions from coal-burning power plants, and reversing a moratorium on leasing federal lands for coal mining. Trump also has proposed deep cuts in the EPA budget. No one disputes that the 1972 Clean Water Act allows federal agencies to regulate navigable rivers and lakes. Less certain is the status of some 2 million miles of waterheads and streams that flow under part of the year. 60% of the river and stream miles in the lower 48 states, plus 20 million acres of wetlands that aren't directly connected to large waterways. From an interpretation, those waters are protected. Business groups and some Republican state officials, including then Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, now Trump's EPA chief, filed suit, contending the regulation gave federal officials too much authority over waters that don't cross state lines or have a clear link to waters that are covered. The regulation was in effect for a short period in 2015 before the appeals court issued a stay. Those legal challenges are still pending. Response to Tuesday's announcement largely fell down party lines, with congressional Republicans hailing the move. Rick?
In the battle for Mosul, militants still display resilience from Mosul, Iraq. Counterattacks by Islamic State militants on the western edge of Mosul have stalled Iraqi forces' push in the old city. The militants' last stronghold in the battle, an Iraqi officer said Tuesday. The attacks forced Iraqi forces and the U.S.-led coalition to pull some assets away from the old city to again clear the Yarmouk and Tanakh neighborhoods, which were declared liberated in May. The assaults underscore the Sunni extremist group's resilience in the city despite months of heavy fighting with Iraqi forces backed by U.S. air power. According to the Iraqi officer, the latest counterattacks began Sunday by scores of Islamic State fighters dressed as Iraqi Shiite paramilitaries. The following day, he said, a dozen coalition airstrikes on Mosul's western edge killed about 40 militants. The territory that the Islamic State still holds in Mosul has been reduced to an area of less than a square mile in the ancient Old City district. Front lines were quiet in the Old City on Tuesday as Iraqi special forces scouted the terrain. Troops ducked into narrow alleys, through bright courtyards, and up balconies to reach positions with a view of the now destroyed Al-Nuri Mosque. Lieutenant General Abdul Wahab al-Assadi of the Iraqi Special Forces said the Islamic State holds very little territory inside Mosul. He said that he hoped the operation would be concluded within days. But despite staggering territorial losses, the Islamic State has managed to launch a number of counterattacks and assaults inside some Mosul neighborhoods that were retaken from it earlier this month. The attacks also underscore the security threat that the Islamic State will likely pose long after the militant group is routed from all of Mosul and other territory it holds in Iraq. Paul?
Well, that's been the national and international news. It's 10:20, and we'll switch over to the local news. In Northeast Nebraska, the community will get to keep its county court judgeship for now, but the fight to do it showed a growing tug-of-war brewing over whether judicial resources should go to the state's urban or rural areas. Of the Judicial Resources Commission at the Capitol, the state court administrator's office asked members to postpone a decision about whether to fill an 8th judicial district vacancy in O'Neill due to County Court Judge Alan Brodbeck's recent retirement. Jennifer Rasmussen, the deputy court administrator, said a 6-month delay would give them time to use grant funds to assess how best to serve the needs of central Nebraska. We feel this is a unique moment in time where we can pause and take this time to do an evaluation to see if we can approach serving this area a little bit differently, she said. The problem isn't one of caseload, like judges face in the eastern part of the state. It's geography. The elbow-shaped area covers 15 counties and more than a quarter of the state. To the north, to St. Paul, just north of Grand Island in the middle. For the next 6 months, the work would be split between the 2 other county court judges in District 8, who are based in Valentine and Broken Bow, and with judges on the edges of 2 neighboring districts that include Norfolk and Columbus areas, Rasmussen said. Manageable on paper, she said. Nebraska Supreme Court Justice Stephanie Stacy said there's also a working committee of judges looking at everything with fresh eyes and trying to be smarter with the court's resources. But over the next 2.5 hours, the commission of judges, attorneys, and laymen heard from a stream of people against the idea, from O'Neill's mayor and retired Judge Brodbeck to the Nebraska Attorney General's office. Mayor Bill Price said Brodbeck was a great asset to the community for many years, and he'd hate to lose the presence of a judge there. It seemed like every time we turn around, Lincoln is pulling something away from rural Nebraska, he said. O'Neill attorney Forrest Pettis said he understands budget problems, but if a judge is taken from O'Neill, they'll never get it back. So we're here to fight for it, he said. But an exchange between Broadbeck, the retired judge, and Commissioner Tim Engler, a Lincoln attorney, got to the matter of money. Is it economically efficient to keep O'Neill in the 8th Judicial District? Broadbeck asked. Maybe not. But he said, access to courts and to justice is as essential as other government services, like firefighters and police. Engler said what the rural population needs to understand is that unless they convince the legislature to add judges, we have to start moving them. But Commissioner Mark Seipel, a Columbus attorney, asked where the O'Neill's judgeship would go. No one was asking for it to be moved. Instead, he said, they heard from a lot of people about how it would affect them. It's a hell of a thing to take a judge from somebody, Seipel said. In the end, commissioners voiced support for a statewide study of judicial resources and voted 10-3 to find that a vacancy exists and to take steps to replace Broadbeck in O'Neill. Right.
LSU dads team up to save man's life. Dr. Jerry Purchet traveled to Omaha to watch his son pitch for LSU in the College World Series. But the family practice doctor has acted as an informal first responder during the CWS. Earlier in the tournament, he tended to a 6-year-old boy who got smacked in the forehead by a foul ball and a man suffering from apparent dehydration. But Purchet's biggest test came Monday during LSU's matchup against Florida, the first game of the CWS Championship Series. LSU trailed Florida 3-0 in the 6th inning, and Purchet sat next to his wife in section 117 at TD Ameritrade Park, hoping the Tigers' bats would heat up. Then someone called out, "Hey, Doc, we need your help." Purchet, still sitting a half dozen rows down from the concourse, rushed up the steps. People at the entrance to section 117, holding up a limp 87-year-old man. "Help me lay him down," Purchet told them. Other fans who had clustered around the man, Bobby Harvey, stepped away. The doctor went to work. Purchet checked for a pulse, nothing. He listened to the man's breathing. All he heard were gasps. Purchet ripped away the man's shirt and started CPR. Suddenly, there was no game, no championship on the line for his son, Jared, only saving a life. Jimmy Roy, a firefighter in Louisiana and father of LSU's strength and conditioning coach, began giving the man mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Another LSU fan, a woman Purchet thinks was from Omaha, cradled the man's head. Purchet of Lutcher, Louisiana, said that by the time the paramedics arrived, the man's pulse had returned and he was breathing on his own. Paramedics lifted him onto a stretcher and took him to the Nebraska Medical Center, where he was listed in good condition Tuesday. A hospital spokesman said the man's family is thankful to everyone who helped. The family didn't have a chance to say anything to the doctor that night. I was like, "Go, just go," Purchet said. Purchet returned to his seat and looked over at his wife. "What just happened?" he asked. He watched the game but kept thinking about the man. When the game ended, LSU lost 4-3. Purchet tracked down a paramedic at the stadium. "How's the man doing?" the doctor asked. "He's stable," the paramedic said. That's the word the doctor wanted to hear. Paul?
It's been a miserable 6 months for a bunch of nonprofits providing care for the state's Medicaid clients. Directors on Tuesday detailed the damage of their agencies since the State Department of Health and Human Services put in place a new managed care system, Heritage Health, that went live in January. Heritage Health has about 230,000 Medicaid clients. Governor Pete Ricketts administers the department, which is in charge of the Medicaid managed care system. But the legislature has a responsibility to provide oversight for the programs that spend tax dollars. That's the reason for the Tuesday hearing. We must take a long view, remembering, as I said, Heritage Health has been in operation for just 6 months. Carson HHS Committee Chairman Marv Wright but it's been a long 6 months for nonprofit providers who have serious concerns about the 3 Heritage Health managed care organizations, mostly about not getting timely payments for the services provided to their clients on behalf of the state. With one of the organizers, Nebraska Total Care, with nearly 76,000 members, that the state sent a notice May 30th of serious deficiencies in its payment of claims. Concerns by providers were not adequately addressed and the organization's performance unacceptable, said the notice from Heather Lebinsky of the state Medicaid division. Sanctions could include $25,000 for each failure to provide services, for making misrepresentative or false statements to enrollees or providers, not complying with required doctor incentive plans, and for marketing violations. The sanctions could be waived if the organization submits a plan by June 30th and completes all action items. Requests for payment are supposed to be paid within 15 days if claims are properly filled out, and within 6 months if they are not. One of the problems has been the high number of claims that the managed care organizations, including Nebraska Total Care, United Healthcare, and WellCare, have rejected as not properly filled out. One provider said she has submitted the same claim a dozen times, which is corrected, but continuously rejected. Katie McLeese Stevenson of Lincoln's Child Guidance Center told the committee that providers expected there would be issues with a large system change. I did not imagine that the issues would be so deep and last for so long, she said. The number of providers willing to accept Medicaid clients is decreasing, she said. Jessica Thone, representing the newly formed Heritage Health Stakeholders Group, told the committee some in the group have received denials for services authorized by the Medicaid managed care programs, including medications that are effective in stabilizing mental illness. Providers in the group collectively reported unpaid claims of nearly $27.2 million. We are aware of providers that have had to reduce the number of clients they serve or reduce the level of services until they are paid, Thone said. One provider had to apply for a line of credit to make payroll, and 3 other filed for bankruptcy, she said. Rick?
Decision on new tax will take more time. The vote is postponed after some council members said they hadn't seen proposed amendment. The Omaha City Council has delayed the implementation of a new occupation tax for the Capital District downtown development after several council members didn't receive a proposed amendment to the ordinance. The tax in question is an enhanced employment district where residents and shoppers pay an additional fee to help fund public infrastructure or other improvements. The Capital District would be the first such area in Omaha, and the tax has been a part of the project's financing plan from the beginning. Council members said they support the project, but said they still need to work out some of the kinks in the implementation of the new tax. The cleaner we can make this ordinance, the better off we would be, said Councilman Rich Pauls. The proposal has the support of Mayor Gene Stothert and Council members Ben Gray and Chris Jerem, who represent the areas around the project north of Capitol Avenue between 10th and 12th Street. But Councilmember Alamy Melton has said that she doesn't like the idea of implementing a new tax, and she said the ordinance in question didn't offer clear enough guidance for vendors who would charge the tax to the customers. On top of that, council members were asked to approve an amendment to the initial ordinance. Melton and Councilman Pete Festerman said they hadn't seen the amendment and weren't comfortable. I'm not placing blame on anybody, but I wasn't given an amendment of the whole until 5 minutes ago, Festerson said. I'm not voting on anything I haven't read. According to City Attorney Paul Kratz, the amendment would make clear a 20-year limit on the tax, remove one piece of property from the taxed area, and allow Stothard to sign administrative agreements relating to the ordinance. The council voted 4-3 to postpone a vote on the proposed ordinance to July 18th. That means the new tax probably won't take effect until August the 2nd. Paul?
An animal rights watchdog group on Tuesday called for the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to permanently ban a team of researchers from experimenting on mice after the university self-reported a breach of research protocols in 2016. Stop Animal Exploitation Now, an Ohio-based animal rights group advocating for an end to animal research, obtained the June 2nd, 2016 report to the National Institute of Health's Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare from a Freedom of Information Act request. Michael Budke, the organization's co-founder, said in a letter to UNL Chancellor Ronnie Green that the researchers conducting animal trials for an HIV vaccine through a $458,000 grant from NIH floated the federal regulations as well as the authority of UNL Research Administration. The complaint against UNL stems from a university-generated report to NIH triggered by a March 2016 dispute between researchers and a veterinarian over the timely euthanasia of mice used in the study. University researchers asked the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee, responsible for overseeing the use of animals in research and teaching at the university, to investigate whether or not research practice was in line with protocols. The committee found unauthorized individuals were participating in animal-related activities and research was being done in an unapproved lab. The investigation also cited a failure by researchers to follow animal well-being and post-procedure guidelines, as well as a failure to euthanize animals in a timely manner. In response, the committee ordered research to cease in April 2016 while further review was being done. The stop order was lifted briefly after the committee determined being made in reorganizing research protocols, but reissued in May 2016 when lab members were observed to be removing experimentally manipulated animals from the facility to an unauthorized laboratory. Budke said, who said since 1986, he has read hundreds, if not thousands, of reports similar to the one issued by UNL, said that part of the report stood out. This was the first time I remember hearing about laboratory staff absconding with the animals, he said. When research protocols are suspended twice, which in and of itself is extremely unusual, why is this project still funded and why are they allowed to continue working with animals? Responding to Bucky's complaint on Tuesday, UNL said the animal rights group's characterization of the report tells only a part of the story. A June 8, 2016 letter from the NIH 6 days after UNL self-reported being out of compliance with research protocols, signed off on the corrective and preventative measures the research team put into place to avoid falling out of compliance in the future. We appreciate being informed of this matter and find no cause for further action by this office. Brent Morse, an animal welfare program specialist at NIH, wrote to NUL's then Associate Vice Chancellor for Research, Steve Goddard. The university spokesman said those corrective and preventative measures remain in place. Yep.
Man held in Nebraska believed to be the AK-47 bandit. Law enforcement authorities on Tuesday confirmed that a man who was arrested last week in Dawson County, Nebraska, is the suspect in a series of bank robberies in 5 states. Richard Gathercole, 39, of Roundup, Montana, is believed to be the AK-47 bandit, an FBI spokesman wrote in a statement. Gathercole last week fired at a Kansas state trooper with a rifle as he fled a traffic stop, authorities said. That vehicle, Gathercole allegedly stole a pickup truck from a farm and drove north across the Nebraska border. He was arrested June 20th at the Nebraska land truck stop in Lexington, authorities said. The sheriff's deputy had spotted him pulling off the highway and realized that he and his vehicle matched the description of the assailant who fired on the Kansas trooper the evening before on Interstate 70 near Goodland. He's alleged that Gathercole had committed 6 bank robberies over 3 years in California, Washington, Idaho, Nebraska, and Iowa. The robberies began in 2012, when Gathercole also shot and wounded a police officer in Chino, California, authorities said. 2 of the robberies occurred in the Midlands. Gathercole robbed a First Nebraska bank in Nebraska City in August 2014. Authorities alleged Gathercole carried a duffel bag and an assault rifle with a drum magazine, they said. A similar robbery occurred in Mason City, Iowa in July 2015. It was the last known robbery linked to the AK-47 series. In Mason City, Gathercole was accused of robbing the Heartland Community Credit Union and of using an improvised explosive device to threaten tellers. Paul?
2 Lincoln police officers investigated for steroid use have filed a federal civil rights lawsuit alleging their fellow officers subjected them to unlawful policing. Tim Crowan and Josh Fullerton were not charged or punished in the criminal and internal investigation that began in the fall of 2015 and were first reported by the Journal-Star. In their lawsuit filed Monday, attorney Douglas Phillips alleged the officers were subjected to unlawful arrest, illegally denied access to their attorney, and their property was unlawfully searched, among other claims. The lawsuit Narcotics Unit Captain Chris Peterson, former Chief Jim Pushkin, Associate Chief Brian Jackson, and several officers, along with the department's lawyer, as defendants in the case. Phillips declined to comment further on the case Tuesday. Reached for comment on the lawsuit's allegation, Chief Jeff Blimeister said department officials are evaluating the officers' claims and working with the city attorney's office to review previously completed internal investigations. A Lincoln officer since 2000, Cronin alleges the department's misconduct arose when he moved to patrol after serving as a drug investigator under Peterson and continued drug investigations, the lawsuit said. When Cronin began to have success with narcotics arrests and seizures for unknown reasons, Peterson began a pattern and practice of interference and harassment against Cronin and his investigations, the lawsuit said. Peterson tried to stop Cronin's investigations and tried to keep the department from allowing him to get specialized training, Phillips said. This harassment continued, the attorney said, after Cronin complained to the personnel sergeant. That complaint, which was forwarded to the city's Commission on Human Rights, wasn't thoroughly investigated by the city, the lawsuit said. In September 2015, Jackson contacted Cronin after fielding a complaint the officer had interfered in an investigation into a nutrition and supplement store called Superzilla in Ohio, Phillips said. Cronin's friend had operated the store in Powell, Ohio, and he bought legal supplements from his friend to use in working out and lifting weights, the lawsuit said. He had texted his friend, who was accused of selling illegal steroids, about his rights in dealing with the police, the lawsuit said. Powell, Ohio police sent the vague text messages to Lincoln police, which were then turned over to Peterson, who Cronin alleges then retaliated against him for the previous complaint. On September 28, 2015, narcotics sergeant detained Cronin at a police station, advised him he was being criminally investigated, and said he was not under arrest but didn't allow him to leave, the lawsuit said. He asked to have his lawyer present but wasn't allowed to see him when he arrived or allowed to talk with him in private, the lawsuit said. Well, this article goes on for quite a while, but I think we've got the gist of what's going on. It's 10:42, and we'll now move over to the obituary page. I will be reading from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Atten, Barbara Atten, age 88. No other information is available at this time. Brendanborough, Charles Brendanborough, age 92, of Bellwood. Funeral services will be at 10:30 this Friday at Bellwood United Methodist Church. Memorials are in the care of the family. Arrangements by Shermock Funeral Home in David City. Bruce, Norman Bruce, age 66. Additional information will be forthcoming. Carter, Arlise Carter, age 83. No service is scheduled. Cards in lieu of flowers can be sent to Pamela Hoback, 23300 South 110th Street in Hickman, Nebraska, 68372. Costello, Pancho Costello, age 12, of Lincoln. Funeral service will be at 11 a.m. Saturday, July 1st at Metcalf Funeral Home Chapel on 27th Street. Clark, Lenora Clark, age 86, of Lincoln. A celebration of life service will be held at 1 p.m. on Thursday, June 29th at Wyuka Funeral Home in Lincoln. Cook, Irene Cook, age 89, of Fairbury. Funeral service will be at 10:30 a.m. today at Zion Lutheran Church in Tobias. Farmer and Son Funeral Home in Geneva is handling the arrangements, memorials to the Tobias Rescue Squad. Everett's, Margaret Everett's, age 95, of Seward, formerly of Lincoln and Geneva. Funeral services will be at 11 a.m. Saturday at Grace Lutheran Church in Geneva. Memorials to the University of Nebraska, Concordia University, Grace Lutheran Church, or St. Mark's Lutheran Church in Lincoln. Farmer and Sons Funeral Home in Geneva is handling the arrangements. Gerlach, Gary Gerlach, age 64, of Lincoln. He was a veteran. Services will be held at 11 a.m. Friday, June 30th at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Interment with military honors will be at Wyuka Cemetery. Memorials to the Nebraska Habitat for Humanities. Hanson, Elton Hanson, age 90, of Dorchester. Services will be held at 11 a.m. Friday at the Kunkel Funeral Home in Crete. Harrison, Richard Harrison, age 76, of Milford. Memorial service will be held at 7 p.m. Monday, July 3rd at Webmeyer Library in Milford. Luber Moore Funeral Home in Milford is handling the arrangements. Keeber, Magdalene Keebler, age 93, of St. Edward's. A Mass of Christian burial will be at 10:30 a.m. Thursday, June 29th at St. Michael's Catholic Church in Spalding. Dulce Schiff Mortuary of Spalding is in charge of the arrangements. Lee, William Lee, age 82. A memorial service will be conducted from 12 to 2 p.m. on Sunday, July 9th at Tishmash, and that's Tsemach, Adonai, Adonai, on Lark Avenue in Los Gatos, California. Larry Lynn, age 92, of York. Memorial services are scheduled for 10 a.m. Thursday, June 29th at the First United Methodist Church in York. Memorials may be directed to his family for later designation. In York is handling the arrangements. McCloy, Dennis McCloy, age 71, of Lincoln. He was a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. A graveside service will be held at 2 p.m. Thursday, June 29th at Lincoln Memorial Park on 14th Street. Meet at Gate 3. Memorials to the Wounded Warrior Project. Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Riddle, Franklin Riddle, age 79, of Lincoln. Cremation has occurred. There will be no visitation. A private family burial will be held. Arrangements are by Trump Funeral Services on O Street. Slater, Jeanette Slater, age 78. No other information is available. Schuler, Roger Schuler, age 81. He was a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. Memorial services will be held at 3 p.m. on Friday, June 30th at the Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home. Spalte, Ann Spalte, age 49, of Omaha. No other information is available. Stangler, Millard Stangler Sr., age 87. He was a veteran of the Army. Funeral service will be at 11 a.m. Friday, June 30th at St. John's Catholic Church. Boothers, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Sweet, Sidney Sweet, age 85, of Lincoln. He was a veteran. Join us for a root beer float in celebration of his life well lived. The open house will be from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Thursday, June 29th at the Country Club of Lincoln. Boothers, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. And that is it for the Lincoln Journal-Star in regard to the death notices.
From the Omaha World Herald, Andrew Anderson, he was a veteran, age 88. Celebration of life, 10 a.m. Wednesday, June 28th, today at Bremen Mortuary, 72nd Street. Military honors provided by American Legion Post 331. Baird, Shuggle Uggleberg Baird, age 73. Services were held at Kramer Mortuary Home Sunday, June 18th, and she was interred in Mid-America Muslim Cemetery in Kansas City, Missouri on Monday, June 19th. Susan Batt, age 63. If you wish to give condolences, email pepperginger1@gmail.com. Britton, Norbert Bud Britton Jr., age 71, of Counts Bluffs. Visitation Thursday, 6 to 7:30 p.m. with special remarks being given at 7:30 p.m. at the Hoy Kilnosky Funeral Home. Carter, Arliss J. Wendland Carter, 83, Lincoln. No services. Cards will be sent in lieu of flowers to Pamela Holback in Hickman, Nebraska. Chapman, William Scott Chapman, age 10, massive Christian burial Wednesday, June 28th at 11:15 at St. Cecilia Cathedral, interment in Hillcrest. Memorials will be directed by the family. Copeland, James Sr. Copeland, age 96, he was a veteran. Funeral services 1 p.m. Thursday, mortuary, interment at Forest Lawn Cemetery with military honors. Dady, Stephen C. Dady, age 69. Services will be held Wednesday, June 28th at 1 p.m. in the Bel Air Chapel of E.P. Hoffman, Dwart Cutler Bel Air Chapel. Dormus, Patricia S. Dormus, memorial service Saturday, July 1st, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Forest Lawn Cemetery. Graveside service followed by brunch. Please meet at the Forest Lawn Funeral Home. Memorials to the Nebraska Humane Society. Ewan, Rose H. Ewan, age 92. A memorial mass will be held on Tuesday, July 25th at St. Margaret St. Mary's Church in Omaha. Fike, Randall Fike, age 68. Memorial service 2 p.m. Saturday, July 2017 at Kuntz Memorial Lutheran Church in Omaha, Nebraska. In lieu of flowers, memorial contributions can be made to your local chapters of the Compassionate Friends of Crime Stoppers. Fuller, Albert A. Fuller, age 83. Services Saturday, 10 a.m. at St. Francis Cabrini Catholic Church. Gamery, Virginia Marie Gamery, age 77. Memorial Mass Monday, 10 a.m. at St. Columkill Catholic Church with interment of the urn at 11:30 a.m. St. Mary Catholic Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to St. Columkill Catholic Church. Geisler, Lowell D. Geisler, age 87, of Hooper. Funerals Thursday, 10 a.m. at Emmanuel Lutheran Church, east of Winslow. Visitation Wednesday, 4 p.m. with the family, 6 to 8 p.m. at Ludwigson Hooper Funeral Chapel. Memorials may be directed to the family. Going, Marty G. Going, age 67. Celebration of Marty's life will be Wednesday, June 28th at 5 to 8 p.m. at Heafy Hoffman Dward Cutler, Bel Air Chapel. In lieu of flowers, memorials are suggested to the Millard Public Schools Foundation for scholarship in Marty's memory. Henderson, Esther Marie Rasmussen Henderson, age 93, of Rural Retreat, Virginia. Graveside service will follow at the Bellevue Cemetery at noon. Hill, Richard Thomas, Dick Hill, age 82. Funeral service Friday, June 30th at St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Fort Collins, Colorado at 11 a.m. Hoffman, James L. Hoffman, age 82. Friday service visitation Friday, June 30th at 10:30 a.m., followed by service at 11 a.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of Heafy Hoffman Dward Cutler. Memorials to Encore. Howe, Norman LaRue Howe, age 86. Funeral service Friday, 2 p.m. at Holy Cross Lutheran Church. Memorials to Holy Cross Lutheran Church or the donor's choice. Hurley, Kathleen Ann Hurley, age 70. Service at 7 p.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of Heafy Hoffman Dward Cutler. Memorials to Our Lady of Good Counsel in St. Paul, Minnesota. Jones, Grayling. Funeral Friday, June 30th at 9 a.m. Location for all services at Murray Funeral Service in Omaha. K, Jennifer Beth K, age 37. Services will be held at Bethel Cemetery, Chapel 84th and L at 11 a.m. at Wednesday, June 28th. In lieu of flowers, donations to Bethel Youth Scholarship, Beth Israel Youth Scholarship, or charity of your choice. Confirst, Stephen F. Confirst, age 48. Services Thursday, June 29th at 11 a.m. at Lifegate Church, Midtown. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Braxton Stephen Confirst Education Fund. Cuba, Robert E. Cuba, age 93. He was a veteran. Private memorial and mass, St. Mary's Catholic Church in Bellevue. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the St. Mary's Catholic Church in Bellevue. Leap, Mary Lou Leap, age 82. Funeral service at 11 a.m. Thursday at Westside Church, 150th and Dodge in Omaha. Interment is in the Grange Cemetery. LaBelle, Lanny L. LaBelle, age 81. Funeral services 10 a.m. Thursday, all at the funeral home, Forest Lawn Funeral Home. Lewis, Ida Mae Lewis, age 89. Homegoing celebration 2 p.m. Thursday, June 29th at Bremen Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel. Mastriani, John P. Mastriani, age 68. He was a veteran. And there will be no visitation. Memorial Mass, Our Lady of Peace, Cape Art Chapel, Friday, June 30th, 9:30 a.m. Military honors by Offutt Air Force Base Honor Guard. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the International Myeloma Foundation. McHugh, Jolene K. McHugh, age 58. Mass of Christian burial on Thursday, June 29th at 11 a.m. at St. James Catholic Church. In lieu of flowers, donations will be accepted by the family for distribution to Jolene's favorite charities. Menui, Imogene Menui, age 88, formerly of Council Bluffs. Graveside services Saturday, 11 a.m. at Parkview Cemetery in Hastings, Nebraska. Memorials to the Alzheimer's Foundation. Michaels, John Michaels, age 70. Private service and memorials to the family. Philman, Justine L. Philman, age 83. Excuse me. Celebration of Justine's life Friday, June 30th at 10 a.m. at Mount Nebo Baptist Church. Pittman, Charles E. Pittman, age 66. Funeral service 12 p.m. Friday at King Solomon Missionary Baptist Church. Forest Lawn Funeral Homes handling the services. Podkovich, Mabel I. Podkovich, age 94. Massive Christian burial Friday at 10:30 a.m. at St. Mary Catholic Church in Bellevue. Interment at St. John Cemetery. Memorials will be directed by the family. Rhodes, Nicole Rhodes, service June 29th at 6 p.m. Sunny Slope Church in Omaha. Rice, Lana Ray Rice, age 70. Services will be held at 11 a.m. Saturday, Teresa Catholic Church in Palm Springs, California. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to the Hospice House of Omaha, Josie House Hospice Residence. Robles, Raphael Robles, age 63. He was a veteran. Visitation with the family Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. at the mortuary. Cremation to follow. Rushlaw, Makiko T. Rushlaw, age 85. Funeral Wednesday at 10 a.m. at Discovery Presbyterian Church. Memorials to the VNA Hospice. Wassam, William Bill Wassam, age 65 of Elkhorn. Memorial service Friday, June 30th. At 10:30 a.m. at the Reichmuth Funeral Home in Elkhorn. Memorials can be made to either Teen Challenge of the Midlands or Gears Car Club. Wessel, Dr. Wayne Wessel, he was a veteran. Funeral services Friday, 10:30 a.m. Our Savior Lutheran Church in Wayne. Interment, Mitchell Wrights, Greenwood Cemetery. Memorials can be made to Our Savior Lutheran Church or to Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research in New York. Welty, Ralph Jr. Welty of Louisville, Nebraska. He was 95 and a veteran. Funeral services Thursday, June 29th at 10:30 a.m. St. Patrick's Catholic Church in Manly, Nebraska. Memorials to the family's choice suggested. Wig. Faye D. Wig, age 96 of Missouri Valley, Iowa. Funeral services 10 a.m. Friday at the First Presbyterian Church in Missouri Valley. And finally, Woolery, Dale R. Woolery, age 62. Memorial service Thursday, June 29th, 10:30 a.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of Heafy Hoffman Dward Cutler. Listener memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and will go a long way in keeping the Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to the Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter.
The obituaries were brought to you by SEI Medical Alert. Medical Alert monitoring 24/7, 365 at the push of a button. SEI, your local medical alert provider. Call 402-333-3233 or visit seimedicalalert.com for more information.
Thank you very much, Becca, for that special announcement. And now it is time for our 11 a.m. break on this Wednesday. And we begin, as we usually do, with the home delivery meal menus. And with today's home delivery menu is Ann Pelican. Welcome, Ann.
Wednesday, the 28th, barbecue rib patty, hamburger bun, crispy cubed potatoes, lima beans, and ambrosia, and a pint of 1% milk.
Thank you very much, Ann, for the home delivery meal menus. You can hear this menu repeated again at about 1 o'clock after the grocery ads with Ann Pelican, and just prior to Jean Gray's reading from the short story bookshelf, and it will be played along with tomorrow's menu for your meal planning. Now, for your event planning, here is Becca.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me. Well, actually, RTBS would like to take you out to the ball game. RTBS invites our listeners to join us Saturday, July 1st at 7 p.m. at Warner Park to watch the Omaha Storm Chasers play the Colorado Springs Sky Sox. You'll have to buy your own popcorn and Cracker Jacks, but RTVS has a free ticket to the game for you. You can root for RTVS as we throw the first pitch of the game as the community organization of the night and enjoy fireworks following the game. If you are interested in joining RTVS at the Old Ball Game, please call 402-572-3003 to reserve your free ticket.
Thank you very much, Becca, for that. It will be a very exciting event, I am sure. And we continue our excitement by asking you to stay tuned to the Radio Talking Book Network in Nebraska. We've been proudly serving our blind and visually impaired listeners now for over 42 years. The Radio Talking Book Network is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS-FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio and Television. Now it's time to return to our fine readers for the second hour of reading from today's Omaha World Herald and the Lincoln Journal-Star. And now, once again, let's welcome back Paul Murphy and Rick Miner.
Well, thank you. It's 11:03, and it's time to turn to the editorial page. I will be reading from the Lincoln Journal-Star, and this is their editorial. Nebraskans deserve a lot more than they got for nearly $123,000. That dollar figure is roughly what the University of Nebraska spent over several months in pursuing a new chancellor for its Omaha campus. The first search for an administrator under a new law that exempted much of the process from public records laws, a move officials said was supposed to provide more and better qualified candidates, yielded precisely 0 candidates and the appointment of an interim leader. Heralded as the way to attract better leadership to the NU system, the legislation failed to produce even a single priority candidate for the role. University leaders said the system's financial state dissuaded potential applicants, a claim we believe. But a closer look by outsiders to dissect the process remains nearly impossible because the law allows the university system a level of secrecy exceeding even that of state elected officials. To best serve in the interests of stakeholders and the taxpayers who help fund it, the university must transparently conduct its business in the public eye. The University of Nebraska is, by definition, a public land-grant institution. However, the secrecy in which it can now operate for hiring purposes hinders the accountability of pinpointing precisely what went wrong during this expensive months-long research. The university contracted to pay a search firm $95,000 plus the reimbursement of related costs. The specifics of how that $122,788 was spent remains unclear because of the provisions now in state code. Gone are the days where the university provided internal invoices and reimbursement forms filed by candidates in a response to public records request. One $15,000 plus invoice billed to NU from the firm hired to conduct the search simply listed candidate and interview expenses without any further details. If it weren't for an internal invoice from UNO, the public would have zero knowledge of how NU spent its money on the search. Even that loan document has scant information. All we know is that UNO had catered breakfast and lunches over 2 days, plus the cost of cleaning tablecloths. The $1,405 invoice doesn't detail whether the event was for the prospective chancellor candidates or simply the search committee itself. Yes, this search was indeed the cheapest of the 4 such NU administrative searches in the past 5 years, checking in at less than half the $260,000 spent in 2014-15 to hire President Hank Bounds. But unlike those previous vacancies, there's almost no paper trail to ensure full disclosure and fairness in the most recent process. Nebraskans deserve more and better transparency from university leaders during these costly yet critical searches for such high-ranking officials. Rick?
From the World Herald opinion page, need a job? Think nursing. Kearney's Good Samaritan Hospital recently closed a rehabilitation unit because it couldn't hire enough nurses to serve its patients. Nurses in the unit who stayed on were assigned to other roles. Even then, Good Samaritan needed to advertise for 26 nursing openings. The challenge to find enough nurses is reflected in other hospitals as well. In the Omaha, every major hospital company is advertising to fill more than 50 nursing vacancies. This is why so many medical employers offer incentives to hire nurses, everything from student loan payoffs to signing bonuses. The University of Nebraska Medical Center now offers nursing classes in Omaha, Lincoln, Norfolk, Kearney, and Scottsbluff. And a number of private colleges and universities and schools also offer nursing degrees. Nursing schools in Nebraska graduated 40% more students in 2014 than in 2002. Baby boomer retirements across all industries is creating more openings than the education pipeline can fill. The shortage hits hardest in areas that requires specialized training, such as intensive care, and in rural areas. Recent state surveys show that 71 of Nebraska's 93 counties have fewer than the national average of 9.2 registered nurses per 1,000 people. Job growth coupled with retirements intensifies the need for more nurses. The U.S. Department of Labor projects immediate national debt need for 109 million additional registered nurses by 2024. Nebraska alone could face a shortfall of 4,000 nurses by 2020. High schools, colleges, and policymakers are working creatively to close the gap. For instance, the two-day nursing camp was recently held in Norfolk, giving 27 high school students the hands-on experience of intubating a mechanical patient. Those kids and other prospective nursing students are hearing the message that the mean wage for registered nurses in Nebraska hovers around $60,000 and is only slightly less in Iowa. Potential students also should see the rewards of nursing as evidenced by a recent reunion at the Nebraska Medicine Neonatal Intensive Care Unit between families and the nurses who tended their children as infants. As Melissa and Nick Gregor of Omaha said, NICU nurses often become like family members. This is such a hard job in some ways, Nurse Megan McMorrin told the World Herald's Merrick Flicker. But seeing these kids reminds me why I do what I do. Here's hoping more students join her and help to fill a critical need. Paul?
In this editorial by Cal Thomas, is there anyone who can point to the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, and credibly claim it is accomplishing the goals set for it 7 years ago? Insurers are pulling out of the exchanges. Premiums and related costs are going up, not down, as supporters of the misnamed law claimed they would. Many people who like their doctors are not being allowed to keep their doctors. In a Facebook post last week, Obama himself didn't even bother to defend Obamacare. Instead, he criticized a proposed replacement, calling the Senate bill written by Republicans a massive transfer of wealth from middle class and poor families to the richest people in America. Leaving aside whether the poor and much of the middle class have any wealth to transfer, much less to meet their own needs, who would know more about a massive transfer of wealth than Obama, whose own healthcare law is attempting to do just that? In a statement following the release of a summary of the Senate Republican bill, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican from Kentucky, said Senate Democrats may not have wanted to work with us in a serious way to address Obamacare's failures before, but I hope they will take this opportunity to do what's right for the American people now. Good luck with that. In our politically polarized atmosphere, even a good morning from a member of the opposition party might provoke a response. In business and in virtually every other area of life, when something doesn't work, most people would suggest trying another path. Not in Washington, where failure is just another opportunity to spend more money. Here is all about intentions, feelings, and appealing to the base, not accomplishments. If your intention in supporting Obamacare was to fix what is wrong with healthcare, that is all that matters, not whether your fix worked. One senator is trying to solve a related problem that could serve as a model for his colleagues when it comes to a new healthcare bill. Senator Mike Enzi, Republican from Wyoming, who chairs the Budget Committee, wants to end duplicative government programs, along with unauthorized spending on programs whose legislative authority has expired. Enzi estimates duplicative government programs are costing taxpayers $310 billion in counting. According to figures supplied by Enzi's office, there are hundreds of laws that duplicate each other. Comptroller General Gene Dodaro told a Senate panel in April that a Government Accountability Office, GAO, report found 645 ideas in 249 areas that would reduce or eliminate overlapping and duplicative programs. So far, Dodaro testified 51% have been implemented, 31% partially implemented, and 18% not implemented. The biggest challenge may be reducing unauthorized spending. Enzi says some spending is on autopay, with some programs not having been reauthorized in 30 years. As Ronald Reagan once quipped, no government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. Government programs, once launched, never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth. Taxpayers are paying for 158 science, technology, engineering, and math STEM programs and nearly 700 energy initiatives, according to the GAO. Senator Enzi wants to restore the historical link between authorizations and appropriations. The real scandal in Washington has nothing to do with Russia. It is overspending, overtaxing, and overreaching government. All of these programs, along with healthcare and unauthorized spending, can be fixed. All it takes is willpower and goodwill, two characteristics that are sorely lacking in Washington. Rick?
In a column by Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, rethinking hostage negotiations. Otto Warmbier was laid to rest June 22nd by his loving family in their town outside Cincinnati, 9 days after he was brought home in a coma after 17 months of imprisonment in North Korea. The North Korean government described him as a prisoner of war, so by their own definition, his death is their absolute responsibility pursuant to the Geneva Conventions. That the North Korean government kept him in an unresponsive state without proper medical assistance constitutes a crime in terms of international law and flouts common decency. The blame is theirs. The lesson for us is that America's hostage negotiation strategy is broken. I've helped rescue hostages from around the world and from North Korea specifically. In 1994, I negotiated the return of a downed Army helicopter pilot from North Korea and the remains of his co-pilot. In 1996, I helped bring American Evan Hunziker back from North Korea. I and the team at my center worked for 15 months to try to gain Otto's release, including a visit to Pyongyang in September. To bring these cases to a resolution, we often work on three parallel tracks: identifying opportunities to create leverage, engaging directly with captors to ascertain what it might take to secure hostages' release, and working with the families of those taken hostage who often find themselves in need of guidance. Working on all three tracks remains viable, but Otto's case shows that it's time for a paradigm shift. First, we have to recognize that time is no longer neutral. In past instances, all that mattered was working toward an outcome, no matter how long it might take. But urgency must be the new norm if we're to have a chance at curtailing the physical and mental abuse that prisoners can face, particularly when dealing with an unpredictable actor. In the year plus since Otto was detained, Kim Jong-un contravened a litany of humanitarian norms regarding treatment of hostages. The regime still hasn't provided a believable explanation for Otto's coma or why it failed to disclose his condition to the family or diplomatic proxies in the country. But timing is only part of the problem. Previous hostage negotiations have had success largely because outside actors have been effective in pressuring their client states. Maybe North Korea doesn't have an incentive to appease America, but China, which works with both countries and fears the collapse of the North Korean state, does. Otto's case, though, underscores the reality that the final stages of negotiations between sovereign states often need to be undertaken by the parties themselves, here, the government of the United States and North Korea. Paul?
Well, it's 11:17, and we'll switch over to today's living and entertainment. But the 2017 finale by the Rad Thrads Jazz in June's 26th season was neatly wrapped in a gift package of beautiful weather and enthusiastic response from the audience, many of whom stuck around as the band continued to play well after the usual 9 p.m. finish. The New York City-based quintet boasted a versatile lineup, including Patrick Sargent on tenor saxophonist, a doubling on keyboard, Michael Fatum on trumpet, and a rocking rhythm section consisting of Alden Harris McCoy on guitar, Mike Harlan on bass, and John Fatum on drums. All 5 vocalized, with drummer John Fatum having an especially gritty voice that was appropriate for the R&B and funk material, including many original songs by band members. Early in the program, the Thrads brought out an old favorite, Will the Circle Be Unbroken, with some nice vocal harmonizing and a stinging guitar solo by Harris McCoy. Rosalie was done in a New Orleans style. John Fatum's lovely Ride on Nebraska, written since their first appearance at Jazz in June 2 years ago, was given its Nebraska premiere. It had the effect of a sentimental journey by road trip across the state. It was followed by a rendition of the old gospel tune, Up Above My Head, notably recorded by Sister Rosetta Thorpe in the 1940s. It featured a honking sax solo by Sargent, Port Authority Strut, an instrumental tune inspired by an unpleasant experience returning to Manhattan from a gig in Hoboken, New Jersey. Later in the show, Sargent and trumpeter Fatum descended the stage and played to the crowd as the rhythm section played on. In just 5 years as a unit, the Thrads seem to have found a groove that capitalizes on all of their talents as singers and instrumentalists. A marriage proposal and acceptance during the intermission was a Jazz in June 1st in a nice way to cap the 2017 season. Rick?
From Molly Cavanaugh of mamaha.com. Mom, the planner leaves summer wide open. So what's the plan this summer? The plan is there is no plan. That's right. The kids are going to spend the summer doing what it seems like none of us ever get to do anymore. Nothing at all. At first I had my concerns, those end of scheduling withdrawals, the buzzing questions and worries. What's a day on the calendar if there's nothing scheduled? Doesn't that just make it a lost day? Can I really tell people nothing when they ask what I have planned for the kids this summer? Surely I'll be labeled a bad parent, certainly an uncreative one, or even, gasp, lazy. Things to do, camps, day camps, and an iCloud calendar clogged with activities. Then I asked my son what he was looking forward to doing over his summer break. Without missing a beat, he said, "Dad, not waking me up in the morning." Seriously, the only thing the kid wants to do for the next 10 weeks is sleep in. And it's no mystery why he feels that way. After wrapping up an activity-bloated end of school year that included a maddening schedule full of spring concerts, class picnics, and art shows, in addition to the usual clubs, classes, and schoolwork, both the kids and I had had enough. And then it hit me. Why not try doing nothing this summer? Simply see where the season takes us. Leading up to this point, I had been thinking about studies we parents read from experts giving their endless stream of advice on how to be an informed and effective parent, or those from specialists warning about screen time and too much of it over summer. For goodness sake, go outside and get that body in motion. But be sure to wear sunscreen, get out, cover up, move, move, move. The recurring theme every summer seems to be to keep these kids busy, busy, busy. We're supposed to offer activities, worksheets, and summer assignments so as not to succumb to the summer slide, to keep their brains engaged and sharp. So I was ready to fill those blank calendar spaces with activities, those slow motion moments with movement, and any chance of brain atrophy with worksheets. Then I spent 1 week of summer vacation with my children and realized that what these active, curious, did I mention active, kids need is a whole lot of nothing this summer. So that is what we're going to do, nothing. Well, not literally nothing. I'm not quite ready to go completely cold turkey on planning. The kids have a 1 week summer camp, and there's the annual trip to Grammy's in Omaha. Plus, we're vacationing at the beach in Michigan. Oh, and then there's the long weekend to watch the big eclipse in August, right before school starts. But other than that, I'm keeping it loose. Think of it as less of a challenge for the children and more so for me. And we've got to always have a plan, Mom. I like a plan. I don't like blank spaces on my calendar. To me, doing something equates to getting things done. And I like to get things done. But this summer, I'm going to try exercising the lost art of nothing and see if summer magic comes out of it. I'll keep you updated. Paul?
Oh, were we supposed to do something?
We're awake. Wake up now.
All right. Well, then we'll switch over to Dear Doctor. Every now and then, I'll see a news story about the benefits of daily aspirin. A recent story linked it to a lower risk of cancer. What gives? Just how healthy is aspirin? Dear reader, we've long known that aspirin can reduce the chances of heart attack and strokes in people at high risk for the condition. In fact, studies on those benefits provide the first inklings of a decreased risk of cancer, especially colon cancer. Although those studies themselves couldn't verify the benefit of aspirin, what we know about the drug supports such a connection. Aspirin inhibits COX2, an enzyme important to the formation of inflammatory compounds. Hypothetically, the loss of these inflammatory compounds, called prostaglandins, may lead to decreased cellular replication and decreased recruitment of new blood vessels. That is, with a reduced ability to multiply and grow, cancer cells could have less of a chance to take hold. One of the earliest assessments of aspirin impact on cancer came from the Women's Health Study, which randomized 39,876 women to taking a placebo or 100 milligrams of aspirin every other day. The women were followed on average for 10 years, and the majority had additional follow-up for 7.5 additional years. Researchers found little difference in the rates of breast cancer and many other cancers, but after 10 years, they found a 20% reduction in the rate of colon cancer among those taking aspirin. The decrease of colon cancer was even greater among women who continued taking aspirin the 7.5-year follow-up period. Note that there was a 14% increase in instances of gastrointestinal bleeding among those taking aspirin versus placebo, but no change in death rates from bleeding between the two groups. A 2016 study assessed aspirin use among patients in two large ongoing studies, the Nurses' Health Study and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study. The combined studies looked at over 88,000 women and almost 48,000 men who had been followed since the 1980s. Those who used aspirin 2 or more times per week in either regular or baby aspirin doses had a 19% reduction in colon cancer and a 15% reduction in stomach and esophageal cancers. However, this benefit was not noted for any other cancer. Further, the decrease in colon cancer rates became significant only after 5 years of taking aspirin. The authors note that the population in these two studies was predominantly Caucasian, and so may not be applicable to other races. The same researchers recently presented a follow-up to this study to the American Association for Cancer Research. In this reevaluation, the authors found a 31% decrease in the risk of colorectal cancer, as well as reduction in breast, prostate, and lung cancers. The reasons for such significant improvements are unclear. Overall, the data point to a 20% reduction in colorectal cancer risk with the regular use of aspirin, specifically 81 milligrams every other day. But the numbers for other cancers are not convincing. Be aware, however, of the risk of gastrointestinal bleeding. If you've had an ulcer or stomach problems with aspirin or other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, daily aspirin use is not for you. Rick?
The Oxford English Dictionary has a new last word, ziziva. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan's 8th grader Samara St. Louis was cramming for a spelling bee in 2012 when she stumbled upon a word that quickly became her favorite. It's the last word in the dictionary, and it's fun to say and it's fun to spell, she told the Post-Ledger. She was speaking of ziziva, an odd little word that often appeared as the final entry in many English dictionaries. But the Oxford English Dictionary, considered by many as the standard bearer of dictionaries, ended with zidam, which referred to an ancient Egyptian malt beer. That's no longer the case. The dictionary just announced several new additions to its vast pages, including St. Louis's favorite word, ziziva, which now has the unique distinction of being OED's last word. Ziziva is a noun and defined as a genus of tropical weevils, family Circulionidae, native to South America and typically found on or near palm trees. The insect was discovered in Brazil in 1922 by Irish entomologist Thomas Lincoln Casey, who gave it the strange name. The origin of the word is unknown, and it seemingly has no etymology. Many different theories exist, however, which the OED listed in its blog. Some think Casey was attempting to create a word that, when spoken aloud, mimicked the sound made by these insects. The effect is known as onomatopoeia. Buzz, whoop, and lisp are some prime examples. Others, however, think Casey was merely having a laugh and came up with a strange combination of letters, so many Z's, as a practical joke, knowing it would then be the final word in most English dictionaries. If that's true, Casey wasn't incorrect, as the OED blog stated. Ziziva owes much of its currency in English to its notoriety as the last entry in various dictionaries, and ranks of which now include the OED. If nothing else, Scrabble players should take note. The word with no special browse boosters is worth 43 points. And by the way, it is spelled Z-Y-Z-Z-Y-V-A. Paul?
43 points. Huh?
43 points.
I don't remember that. When Eric Lund's father, excuse me, John, died 4 years ago, Lund pledged he would grow the family business that they both loved, Twin Lakes Farm, in tribute to the man who made him who he is today. My father taught me everything I know about farming, and everything I am, I owe to him, Lund said. He always told me I could do anything I put my mind to, and he encouraged me to travel, try new things, and take advantage of every opportunity that came along. My dad told me it was only through exposure to new things that you find what you're truly good at and passionate about. Along with a willingness to travel and try new things, Lund also values tradition. He is living in the same log cabin that his father finished building on the day Lund was born. On their hobby farm, they had a 1-acre garden that Lund and his older brother and sister helped with. Lund was in 4-H, and his dad always signed him up for everything. Lund's dad was also his YMCA basketball coach, and he converted the barn into a giant basketball court. He had Lund shoot 100 free throws a day to teach him discipline and to improve his game. Although he played basketball and was a good ball handler and shooter, Lund excelled at football and track at Belfort High School. As a junior, his 400-meter hurdle times drew the attention of Division I college recruiters throughout the Midwest. Lund, however, considers himself a Nebraska boy at heart, and he grew up dreaming of competing as a Husker. The summer before his senior year in high school, he got the call he'd been hoping for. The University of Nebraska offered him a scholarship to run hurdles on the track and field team. While competing on the teams that won the Big 12 Outdoor Championships in 2009 and 10, Lund also pursued a degree in horticulture and landscape design. He went back home to help his father out on the farm after graduating in 2012, after he took off the summer and backpacked through Europe. He continued to race since his return. I continue running and competing because I love them both, says Lund. I've made it to the semifinals at nationals a couple of times. My goal is to make it to the finals. But in 2013, when his father died, Lund also turned his attention to the farm. He said he carries the competitive spirit from the sport into Twin Lakes. The 1 acre garden of his childhood has grown to 42 acres, with Lund devoting 32 of those acres to sweet corn. I buy the best quality seed I can find. My dad taught me if you spend more, you get more, Lund said. I believe that, so I don't skimp on the crops I produce. In addition to his sweet corn, Lund grows cantaloupe, watermelon, onions, bell peppers, tomatoes, zucchini, yellow squash, acorn squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, broccoli, lettuce, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. He needs more room. And he offers a unique opportunity to farmers market shoppers in the form of a membership. With a one-time membership fee of $399, $299 if the amount is paid in full before July 7th, members can get an unlimited amount of produce at any of the weekly farmers markets where Lund has a booth. If you don't join until late August, Lund will prorate the amount, so you're not paying $399 for the last 8 weeks of the market. You won't have a difficult time finding Lund either. He and his mom, Kathy Lund, attend several markets throughout the week when they're not at work on the farm. They can be found here: Wednesdays, the Seward Market; Thursdays, Fallbrook and Crete; Saturdays, Haymarket in Lincoln, and the Old Market in Omaha; Sundays, Old Cheney Road Farmers Market in Lincoln and the Exarban Market in Omaha. In addition, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m., Lund has 2 vegetable stands. One is in the parking lot on the north side of the street across from the Big Red Kino on West O Street, and his other Twin Lakes farm stand is at the Shoemakers South Travel Center on Highway 77 at Saltello Road in Roca. Members can also go to Lund's farm, 1035 182nd Road in Pleasantdale, and drive the acreage in a golf cart and pick their own fruit and vegetables fresh from the farm. There's a petting zoo at the farm for kids, and Lund is planning to buy ponies so kids can ride around the farm, just as he did as a child. Lund also envisions a stock tank or pond that's filled with bluegill and crappie, so kids can fish on their visits to Twin Lakes Farm. To buy a membership or get more information, contact Lund or his mother at the Twin Lakes Farm booth or at any of the previously mentioned area farmers markets. Visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/Twin Lakes Produce. Email Lund at Lund Eric, and that's ERIC 7@msn.com. Call 402-540-5830 or go visit the farm. Rick?
Well, I always try to bring our readers the most disgusting article I can find in the paper, so here goes.
Dun, 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 dun.
Ticks that can give you a red meat allergy. As if there weren't enough reasons to avoid ticks, a symptom can develop in which a bite from certain kind of tick causes an allergic reaction to red meat. A bite from the Lone Star tick across the eastern half of the United States can cause severe symptoms to develop after eating mammalian meats such as pork, beef, and lamb. Symptoms include hives, shortness of breath, and can lead to an anaphylactic reaction. A bite can even be fatal, according to Ronald Saff, an allergist from Tallahassee, Florida. Saff said the ticks are spreading and climate change is contributing. Once confined to southeast and eastern states, they're spreading northward and westward. They like nice, warm environments, he said. As the U.S. gets warmer, we anticipate that the tick will migrate to other states. Researchers at Kansas State found the species is spreading from the eastern part of Kansas, where it was once contained, to central and western Kansas. The College of Veterinary Medicine reported its findings in 2016, also citing a warming climate as a contributing factor. The species is found in Missouri, too. It's one of the more common ticks, said Phil Needham, an agent with the Missouri Department of Conservation in Cass County. Once inflicted with the condition, an allergic reaction can develop after just a single bite of meat. The odd thing about the reaction, Saff said, is that it doesn't develop until several hours after consuming meat. That can leave those who experience symptoms at a loss for what is causing them. Discovered about a decade ago and is slowly circulating through the medical world. This is relatively new, Saff said. If you pick up a medical textbook, you won't find anything on this allergy. Some primary care physicians may not even be aware it exists, Saff said, which may cause statistics of those affected to be underrepresented. Several people a week come to Saff showing signs of the red meat allergy caused by a tick bite. It's a scary thing. This can kill people, he said. None of his patients have died. The relative newness of the condition means it's still unknown if the allergy can remain in someone's system for life. Ginger Brown, who lives outside Wichita, Kansas, contracted the allergy after a bite from the Lone Star tick. Before being diagnosed, she ate meat with mild symptoms as a result. It's not a tragedy, but it's an annoyance, she said. There are worse things that could have happened to me. James Stanford, an infectious disease specialist at Truman Medical Center, Hospital Hill, said no recent cases of Lone Star tick bites have been reported in the region. Ellen Dorshaw Gordon, an epidemiologist with the Jackson County Health Department, said tick-borne diseases are on the rise in some Missouri counties. Saff said the red meat allergy passed by the Lone Star tick is so new that health agencies still do not track it. The alpha-gal allergy, as the red meat allergy is known, is actually caused by sugar molecule found in meat. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention writes the Lone Star tick is very aggressive. The female is distinguished by a white dot or a lone star for which the species is named. Boy, I'd hate to go without a steak.
Oh boy, it's almost lunchtime too. Okay, well, it's 11:40, so we'll switch over to the business and marketing section. The Nebraska Retail Foundation has named Schaefer's owner, Ron Romero, as the 2017 Nebraska Retail Champion for the 1st Congressional District. Romero joins Nebraska's other 2 retail champions, the Green Spot in Omaha in the 2nd Congressional District and the Closet, My Closet in Broken Bow in the 3rd Congressional District. The 3 winners receive an all-expense paid trip to Washington, D.C. for the 2017 Retail Advocates Summit being held July 17th through the 19th, where they will compete with other states' nominees to be named the National Retail Federation 2017 America's Retail Champion. Romero was nominated by Lincoln Mayor Chris Beitler, who presented him with the award Tuesday afternoon. In nomination materials he submitted to the Nebraska Retail Federation, Beitler said Romero has led the store to great success in spite of keen competition from national chains and online sellers. Schaefer's got its start in Lincoln in 1946 as a corner drugstore in downtown Lincoln before expanding to become a appliance and electronics store. About a decade ago, the company opened up its new store at 47th and R Streets, which is nearly double the size of its previous store. In addition to leading one of the largest independently owned electronics and appliance stores in the region with more than 70 employees, Romero serves as president of the nationwide West Marketing Group, which has over 3,000 members in 18 states and was a past president of the North America Retail Dealers Association. Romero is the third generation to lead his store, and is likely there will be a fourth, as his son Ronnie Romero and his daughter Roxy Romero are both involved in the business. Rick?
Europe and the U.S. are rocked by another ransomware cyber attack. A new and highly virulent outbreak of data scrambling software caused disruption across the world Tuesday. Following a similar attack in May, the fresh assault paralyzed some hospitals, government offices, and major multinational corporations in a dramatic demonstration of how easily malicious programs can bring daily life to a halt. Ukraine and other parts of Europe were hit particularly hard by the new strain of ransomware, malicious software that locks up computer files with all but unbreakable encryption, and then demands a ransom for its release. As the malware began to spread across the United States, it affected companies such as the drug maker Merck and Mondelez International, the owner of the food brands such as Oreo and Nabisco. But its pace appeared to slow as the day wore on. The origin of the malware remained unclear. Researchers picking the program apart found evidence that its creators had borrowed from leaked National Security Agency code, raising the possibility that the digital havoc had spread using U.S. taxpayer-funded tools. The virus is spreading all over Europe, and I'm afraid it can harm the whole world, said Victor Jora, the chief executive of InfoSafe IT in Kiev, where reports of the malicious software first emerged earlier on Tuesday. In the Ukraine, victims included the top-level government offices where officials posted photos of darkened computer screens, energy companies, banks, and even cash machines, gas stations and supermarkets. Companies including the global law firm DLA Piper and Danish shipping giant AP Moller Maersk also were affected, although the firms didn't specify the extent of the damage. In the U.S., 2 hospitals in western Pennsylvania were hit. Some patients reported that surgeries were postponed. Few other details were available. Security experts said Tuesday's global cyber attack shares something in common with last month's outbreak of ransomware dubbed WannaCry. Both spread using digital lockpicks originally created by the NSA and later published by the web by a still mysterious group known as the Shadow Brokers. Security vendors, including Bitdefender and Kaspersky, said the NSA exploit, known as Eternal Blue, is allowing malware to spread rapidly by itself across internal computer networks at companies and other large organizations. Microsoft issued a security fix in March, but Chris Weisapel, chief technology officer at the security firm Veracode, warned that it would only be effective if 100% of computers on a company's network were patched, saying that one computer where it were infected, the malware could use a backup mechanism to spread to patched computers as well. Paul?
Well, this is something that we should be proud of in Nebraska. Nebraska beef will be on full display this week at U.S. agriculture officials visit China to commemorate the reopening of the company's markets to U.S. beef. Nebraska Department of Agriculture Director Greg Eibach will join U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue and U.S. Ambassador to China Terry Branstad at events in Beijing on Friday and Shanghai on Saturday to celebrate the return of U.S. beef to Chinese consumers after a nearly 14-year absence due to the mad cow scare. At the Friday event in Beijing, Perdue and Branstad will ceremonially cut prime rib that originated in Nebraska and was shipped by the Greater Omaha Packing Company, which was the first company to ship beef to China under the new agreement. The U.S. is the largest beef producer in the world and the 4th largest exporter. In 2016, nearly 1/5 of U.S. beef exports came from Nebraska. China's growing middle class has been devouring beef in recent years. Chinese imports of the meat increased from $275 million in 2012 to $2.5 billion in 2016. Rick?
Well, it's 11:46 and the time for sports. Champions. Behind pitching and defense, the Gators finally win the first title. Call it redemption, call it unexpected, call it Florida's first College World Series title. The Gators used a tried and true formula, pitching and defense, to secure their first championship in 11 CWS visits with a 6-1 win over LSU. Victory came in front of a sellout crowd of 26,000 at TD Ameritrade Park. I'm still kind of numb, Florida coach Kevin O'Sullivan said. I'm overcome with emotion and so happy for our players. Florida brought a strong team to the series last year, but went 0-2. That disappointment seemed to fuel this year's team, which swept the best of 3 series and denied the Tigers a 7th title. At the top of the Gator hero list Tuesday night was a freshman, Tyler Dyson. Making his second start of the season, he went 6 strong innings and picked up the victory by outdueling LSU starter Jared Posha, the school's career win leader. I tried to get ahead of them early and to let them get themselves out, Dyson said, and I relied on my defense. Michael Byrne and Jackson Coar finished up for Florida. Byrne, the national saves leader, went 1 1/3 inning, while Coar worked out of trouble in the 8th and nailed down the victory in the 9th. The Gators were the better team in the final, but the Tigers did their part to help. They committed 3 errors in the first 2 innings, leading to 2 unearned runs. And comfort for a team seeking its first title. A controversial call in the 7th inning, which certainly will be talked about for years by the LSU faithful, also cost the Tigers the tying run. LSU had just scored to close to 2-1 and had runners on first and third with no outs. Michael Papierski hit a grounder to second baseman Deacon Lippett, who started a 4-6-3 double play. Josh Smith crossed the plate to tie the game, but was sent back to third when an umpire ruled interference with Jake Slaughter, who was sliding into the second. He, the umpire, said that our base runner didn't slide directly into the base, LSU coach Paul Maneri said. I haven't looked at the video yet. The play proved to be a huge when Bo Jordan lined to center field for the final out, stranding Smith at third. Paul?
Bessie Franklin is so upbeat, so full of energy, so dang positive all the time. It's hard to imagine her ever going to a dark place. After what happened last summer, though, it's only natural that she would start to question everything she stood for. Being totally honest with you, it's something that terrifies me, Franklin said, her perpetually positive tone suddenly filled with doubt and insecurity. What if I'm never as good as I was? That's a logical, if excruciating question. At 17, she was the darling of the Olympics, a bubbly teenager who swam in 7 events at London and captured 4 golds and a bronze. 4 years later, she barely qualified for the U.S. team, ceded a starring role to Katie Ledecky, and didn't come close to winning an individual medal in Rio de Janeiro. Her only prize, a rather fluky gold for swimming on a relay team in a morning preliminary. It was awful. It was miserable, said Franklin, who sounds as though she could probably come up with dozens of other adjectives to describe what a letdown it was. You work your ass off. You feel like you're in the best shape of your life. You feel so great. And then when you finish, you're like, what was that? You're flabbergasted. You're blown away every single race. You can't understand why 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. Turns out she was far from 100%. It would be easy to make excuses now to point out that she's needed surgery on both shoulders after Rio. But Franklin knows that wasn't the issue. Only thing is, she may never know why she was such a huge flop on her sport's biggest stage. One of my biggest concerns with coming out to the public about my shoulder surgeries was everybody saying, oh, that's what was wrong. It wasn't, Franklin said, honest as always. I can say that with 100% certainty. The way I was training the whole year, it was the best training I've ever done in my life. For some reason, she adds, as if still probing for answers, it wasn't going over to my racing strategy, wasn't going over to my races. I can't pinpoint it. I can't figure out why. Maybe it was just a combination of a lot of different things. At this point, Franklin main goal is to quit wondering why it happened and just accept that it did. Getting distance from the sport is helping her move in that direction. Undergoing a pair of shoulder surgeries just weeks apart early in the year forced her to step away from the pool. It also gave her a chance to reevaluate her life, her priorities, her struggle to comprehend what happened last summer. Make no mistake, she has no intention to retire. The closest I ever got to thinking about quitting, she said, was me recognizing that I needed to take a chunk of time away. A huge part of me can't imagine leaving the sport on that note. It wasn't about times. I'm not saying I'll leave swimming only after I've got another 4 gold medals at my last Olympics, but I want it to be a performance I'm really proud of. Rick?
The Midlands College Female Athlete of the Year. Wolf grew from a role player into UNK's rock. At 5'10", Annie Wolf wasn't an intimidating presence at the net for the UNK's volleyball team. In fact, it took the Omaha Marion graduate a couple of years with the Lopers before she found her way into the starting lineup along the net. It's cool to look back on my freshman and sophomore season and go, what was I thinking? Why couldn't this have clicked sooner? Wolf said. But once it clicked, Wolf and the Lopers found something special. Wolf was an honorable mention All-American as a junior, and then took her game to another level as she won the NCAA Division II National Player of the Year award in December. That spectacular senior season also earned Wolf the World Herald's Midlands College Female Athlete of the Year honor. University of Nebraska Kearney coach Rick Squires said Wolf didn't show jaw-dropping power at the net, but consistency made her special. She never had a bad game. Her lowest hitting percentage her senior year was .200. By the nature of the game, that doesn't happen very often, said Squires, who has coached the Lopers for 18 years. Every night, she was the most dependable, reliable player that we ever had here. Squires said opposing coaches probably appreciated Wolf more than the average fan because of everything she did in the match. Statistically, Wolf was on the top 3 in most categories for the 35-2 Lopers. She averaged 3.08 kills, 3.04 digs, 0.8 assists, and 0.69 blocks. Served 23 aces and hit .380. Senior year, she took on the bulk of the serve-receive duties. She was one of those players who was really a rock, Squires said. You got so much from her every night that it was nice to see her get rewarded for that. After being a role player for her first 2 seasons in Kearney, Wolf, who was recruited as a middle blocker, found a home as a right side hitter as a junior when she averaged 2.74 kills and 3.19 digs per set. Wolf said she got more comfortable and confident during her junior year, and as a senior, she used her variety around the net to keep defenses off balance. Paul?
In this article out of Washington, the Supreme Court agreed Tuesday to take up New Jersey's bid to allow sports betting at its casinos and racetracks, a case that could lead other states to seek a share of the lucrative market. The justices will review a lower court ruling against the state, which is hoping to capture some of the estimated $150 billion that is illegally wagered on sports each year. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and supporters in the state legislature have tried for years to legalize sports gambling to bolster the state's casino and horse racing industries. The casino industry, after a period of job losses and closings, has lately been doing better. Christie said Tuesday in Trenton at an unrelated event that he was encouraged by the court's decision to take the case up. We're not declaring victory, but at least we're in the game, and that's where we want to be, Christie said. New Jersey State Senator Raymond Lesnick, a Democrat who has led the state's effort to legalize sports gambling, said a win for the state would give an additional boost to casinos. Atlantic City is going to be packed when we win this case, said Lesnick, who first introduced legislation to overturn the ban in 2009. Sports betting will lead to people staying for several days, not just playing a few hours and going home. During football season, the NCAA tournament, the World Cup, people will be flocking to Atlantic City to bet on them. The case will be argued in the fall. Daniel Wallach, an attorney for Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and an expert in sports law, said the case could lead to a nationwide repeal of the federal sports betting ban. The Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals struck down the New Jersey law last year, ruling that the law violated the Federal Professional and Amateur Sports Protection Act of 1992 that forbids state-authorized sports gambling. This is the day that New Jersey has been waiting for years, said Wallach, who has been closely following New Jersey's legal efforts to overturn the ban. The court jumped into the case even after the Trump administration urged the justices not to get involved, putting the governor and the president he campaigned for on opposite sides of the issue. President Donald Trump also once owned the Trump Taj Mahal Casino in Atlantic City. It closed last October under the ownership of fellow billionaire Carl Icahn, who sold it in March to Hard Rock International. The company plans to reopen the casino under its own brand next year. Has lasted nearly as long as Christie has been in office. New Jersey voters passed an unbinding referendum to allow sports betting in 2011. The four major pro sports leagues and the NCAA sued the state in 2012 after Christie signed a sports betting law. Rick?
Sky Sox give Chasers 2 more beatdowns in Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs hammered the Omaha Storm Chasers again on Tuesday, sweeping a doubleheader, 14-6 and 10-2. The Sky Sox, 46-30, also beat the Storm Chasers 14-3 on Monday, meaning the Chasers, 37-39, have been outscored 38-11 over the first 3 games of the series. In the opener, Omaha gave up 14 runs for the second straight game. The Sky Sox led 3-1 after the 3rd inning, but the Chasers scored 5 runs in the top of the 4th to pull ahead. Colorado Springs produced a 5-run inning of its own in the bottom of the 5th, then put the game away with 6 runs in the 6th inning, including a grand slam from catcher Jet Bandy. Terrence Gore doubled, singled, and scored 2 runs to lead the Storm Chasers. Jonathan Zizek took the loss for Omaha, giving up 8 runs on 10 hits over 4 1/3 innings. In the nightcap, the Sky Sox used a pair of home runs to pull away. The score was 2-2 entering the bottom of the 4th, when the Sky Sox scored 4 runs, including a 3-run homer from Lewis Brinson. Andrew Susak hit another 3-run shot in the bottom of the 5th to help the Sky Sox tack on 4 more runs. Colorado Springs did all its scoring against Chasers starter Christian Binford, who allowed 10 runs on 11 hits, including 3 home runs. Susak went 2 for 2 with 4 RBIs to lead the Sky Sox. Omaha will face Colorado Springs again at 1:30 p.m. Wednesday in the 4th of 9 straight games. Well, it's 12 o'clock. This is Rick Miner. Have a good week.
And this is Paul Murphy. Enjoy this beautiful weather.
Thank you both for coming in and spending your time.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
go get a rash at my friend's house.
Well, maybe that's why I'm not going to be here.
I'll be gone by then.
Okay.
You are listening to the Radio Talking Book Network.
All right. See you in a couple weeks.
Oh, you're not going to be here next week?
No, my wife and I are going to fly up to
The
Seattle and
Radio
spend a few
Talking
days up
Book
there.
Network is brought to you with the
Have a good week.
cooperation
Have a good trip.
of iOS FM in Omaha and statewide through the facilities of NET Radio
You too.
and Television.
Oh, I'm sorry, it made me go on in.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to give them back. Okay. My pleasure.
Fine. I had some 4th of July and that's what I saw there with some candy. You're welcome. I just wanted to see the place again.
Yeah, did you miss this?
Been coming here. Yeah, I do.
I'll bet you do.
Yeah, I did. It wasn't such a long drive, but it is from house to bus. It's a long drive for me.
Oh, that is,
Yeah.
that is. You look good, y'all. That's such a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, spring, summery. Cool. And did you see her? Oh. Spencer Darling, did you make them?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, cool.
I have some for a party, not yours. Yeah, I like to make little things.
Do you?
Yeah, I
You
do.
know, I think I would if it was an organized activity,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
to do it on my own, no.
Well, I've got a lot of time on my hands.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did you ever crochet or knit?
No, that drove me nuts.
Did it?
I have to do one of the things.
One of the
One of
things.
the things.
Yeah. Well, then that's perfect.
cute.
Those are darling.
Put some candy in it.
All over, they said that you just didn't have to read the newspaper. About Paul.
Oh, you do? Yeah, I don't think they do.
I think so too, even a two-bedroom. So you had a two-bedroom.
No, I just have one, but I don't need it, but it's for me.
Right.
I bought it for the security and that's close to my daughter.
I like the security.
And the fact that I sold my house, so I can rent it.
That's true.
Yeah, but and I love it all through that one. So gorgeous. Thank you. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. That made my day.
Wonderful, glad.
Everything's going on good.
Yeah, I think so. It
It looks
seems like it.
wonderful. You don't look like you did under strain or stretch. You just look like you stamped out of a bad box.
Thank you. No, my sis is not feeling too good. She's got dizzy spells.
She's older than you.
Yeah, but the thing is, they haven't found a daughter thing wrong. And
You know,
everything seems to be just fine.
We worked for neurologists, and we saw so many people that were dizzy and we never could find out what caused it.
I think sometimes it's stress or it's,
I think it's just your system's getting older.
oh, I think
The
so
blood
too.
pressure and all that's getting old.
And they also changed her, some medications on her, so, you know, it's just, it could be so many things.
I'm dizzy too, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I have to hang on to everything in the house. I can't walk by myself,
Oh, wow.
which I don't care, you know.
Yeah.
I like the small apartment for
Oh,
that reason.
I would
I put
too.
a chair out in the middle of the floor and I can walk around and hang
Oh,
on
you
to it,
bet.
hang on to the walls, yeah. And I go all the time. So with this,
And they think a lot of you over there really sounded.
oh, I love it over there.
So it is pleasant.
I go out and read the paper every morning.
Yeah, that's what they said, they can just laugh.
Hey, hey, how are you?
I'm great, how are you doing?
Doing good.
What the heck are you doing?
We're gonna have candy.
I brought those over.
Wow.
Did you make all those?
Yeah, I did.
Oh.
I had fun
Wow. That was like the time my daughter and I made, we went to that basket set at Dollar Store, whatever. it was.
Oh, yeah.
And we put different little things on them, they looked good, we went to to sell them at the, you know, the big garage sale, what do you call it? And we thought they were so good, they just walked by and acted like, why, thank you, acted like that wasn't junk, that was, oh no, I think we never sold anything.
You did?
No, I mean, we're just the cutest little baskets. We found that we just didn't want to get with that kind of stuff.
I saw a lonely little lemonade stand, you know, a little girl sitting there,
Oh, I
and
know.
it was on Second Avenue. People just don't stop there, you
No,
know?
they don't, and then around that corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she looked so sad.
Oh, shoot. We get, like, Morty and Michelle used to sit out in front of the house.
Oh, yeah.
And the lady and the gentleman lived across the catwalk, get in their car, roll up, stop into a stop, and here they come with all this lemonade rolling down their arms and everything else, and they never said a word, they take it from under the table. They do this every time. It was so cute. Yeah, yeah, that was really sweet.
That is so sweet.
Do you have anybody about the SEI?
It's wonderful.
Good, I'm glad you did. Well, they're going to the one that's over there, same setup. Yeah, no, she made a comment.
Which one was the? Not the one here.
The note I left on your desk.
Just today.
The travel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and before that, no. I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, it would have, this is one of.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, Jane's still here, bye.
He's not running, but, yeah, he doesn't run.
Jane?
Jean,
Oh, Jean. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
she's
still
still here.
doesn't.
okay.
All right.
Like Dorothy had to have surgery.
Ooh, chocolate.
Yes.
Has anybody, have you heard from anyone, volunteer leaders, visitors, any comment about the FBI?
No, I haven't had any response.
Okay. It's pretty much trials.
Well, it's Morris character, I asked if he wanted to go to the student body project. And he hasn't planned for us to do it, so we would have left gone, because he took more of it.
Well, if you have, you're collecting
He discussed it. I don't know what to do it. Now, Spec and his wife usually, they expect, well, Spec usually would go with us 3 years, but they've gotten up there in years, if they can have some kids.
So Paul has Larry.
Yes.
We'll drive that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any, especially today.
If you know, yeah, I'm not sure, that everybody's got their plans already.
Yeah.
Because I know I need somebody for
Well,
Friday.
it's the 4th of July.
Yeah.
And our volunteers will be Tuesday.
Right.
All right, thanks, dear.
Yeah, here's Florida one,
You know how they, have the storm chasers.
oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah. Sunday.
Well, that would be nice. That's it.
You should go to practice. Isn't that a darling place?
Oh, it's like a whole city out there.
It is, oh my, it is grown out since I've been living there. And it's 10,000 tons. Yes. Jameson.
I love this one.
You want to go?
No, I'm not with that. I just don't go where it's kind of hard to get
You used to go.
Constable Bus is so good too, because there's not that much traffic, which is real good for me.
Well, there is a
Well, yeah, out there, in fact, remember back when I rode my horse out there, it was on 4th of July. And these kids went by and threw a firecracker right under my horse. And I knew enough to, I got off so fast and held on the reins and he just reared straight up. Oh my God, it was a
Children just don't think,
I'd been on one runaway horse and I didn't want to be on another. Yeah, kids.
And a lot of times they'll bash you around so that they get you off because they're scared.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I made it for different groups I go to, for different holidays. So does Maureen still like these?
Oh, they're so good.
Oh,
It's nice.
it is.
Steph takes fishing all the time.
Does he?
She,
It's a girl. Oh, it's a girl.
and Alec and him go, go to the store and look at things and for buy or not buy.
Oh.
Yeah.
They keep busy. They just love it.
Yeah. Hi, we've got our girl here, yes. Before you leave.
Oh, I will. Sure. You what? Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'm trying to lose weight. I really am endorsing myself. I didn't get into this campaign. I kept it in a bottom. I'm going to a group that before you try to get off sugar, you know.
When you went to Weight Watchers, you really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did, and this group's right near me, kind of close to the church. They try to sell white flour and sugar, stuff like that.
What church?
It's a Broadway Christian church. It's, and they've got all kinds of meetings here. They've got Bible studies. Yeah, it's just, you know, just a nice place. And it has a woman pastor, which I adore.
Oh,
I love women pastors.
I never been to one pastor.
They're very good. I think they're extra good because, you know, they had to really make them, or had to really climb the ladder to get going. You know, I was in a thrift store and I had a whole bag of them. They're made of rubber.
Oh, neat.
So I just pasted them on there.
See, that's what we do with our baskets. It's things like
Oh, it's
cut things out, fill.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh, I love,
Christmas stocking and
I
all
love,
that kind of stuff.
I
We did
know.
all that.
I love.
And we had a garage sale and sometime later and put those out. And we liked them there.
You know, there's too much commercial stuff made over in China that people don't like them. I feel sorry for people that are creative because they make so much stuff. They want to keep making it. There's not a market for it.
Michelle does the earrings and everything.
Does she?
Yeah.
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 Yes.
Yeah, me too.
There's more like fireworks.
Yeah, he got a few of them.
Yeah. I used to win my one, that one grandson, he has the monthly. He, I love fireworks. And it's been.
What's he doing now?
He is in a wonderful program. He's going to be a junior on the campus of Oklahoma University. They have a special campus for kids. It's a high school. And they train them in medicine, physics, and a couple of other subjects. And they have to have a real high school students to actually get in. And they live there on campus.
Oh, how nice.
So he'll be going to that.
Well, that's
Hopefully, you know, for his 2 years. He wants to be a doctor. Like his Ryan just graduated from middle school. Yeah. That might be STEM grandson. That might be, but he'd be pretty far out. And he is going down to Kansas City to take his, he's going to be a neurologist of all things. That's what I told him, that's who I work for. It is a good thing because you don't have to go out on that night or not call.
That's true.
Yeah, so I'm hoping Taylor can do it. I'm not sure if it's good for him to be away from their family at that age.
Does he go home on weekends or?
He can, yeah. It's about a 2-hour drive from Oklahoma City, where they live. Yeah, and he's got his car, so. Yeah, it's just, you know, kind of hard for kids to be away from home anyway.
Yeah.
Even when I went to college, there was kids homesick. My gosh, just fried that night. So I'm hoping and praying that he'll be okay.
I hope so too.
Well, here's hoping that your house sells here pretty soon. Summertime's the best time. Who's it listed with? That's who I use too, though. Oh, they're good. I would think, yeah, maybe the road out there, maybe that's it. If you have little children and everything. It's a shame. Is it 2 bedrooms up and 1 down? 3 bedrooms. Oh, 3 bedrooms up. Darn it. Well, some way it's gonna sell. Okay, well, I'll talk to you later. You
So
take
good to
it.
see you,
Did
baby.
I didn't get my volunteer thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll see you later.
Okay, hon. No, she's going down.
Here, Paul, here. Sure would. Yeah, of course I would. I'll get your address. I work for his father. John Goldner, he's retired, he was a neurologist. And he had 3 girls and he had David Goldner. He has his office number, but he probably comes over there. Yeah, but he's good, he'd be good. Very high regard for his father, John Goldner. Well, that's great. Yeah, family. There's, I think there's 3 or 4 houses. There's one down there. Probably each hospital. Yeah, my daughter loved the houses. Well, it would depend on which one you're close to. You're right. Oh, man, yeah, there's Jenny Ed Methodist, they're both good hospitals. They really are, been both of them. Yeah, it's called, well, what is it? It's in the Methodist system, that's Jenny Ed Hospital. Mercy Hospital is the one that I've had. Yeah, so, now whatever her doctor, or wherever she goes, most of the houses come to her house. Let's do that. Oh, so she'll sign up for that. Good idea. Did you really get it done? Oh, cute. Oh, I bet your sounds great too, isn't it? Yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. Oh, cute. Oh. Yeah, my dog, he's 7. I got him from the Humane Society. He's been the most wonderful dog. There's so much. We walk around, there's that big park area where you came. It's a huge, it's right next to us. You can walk a mile on their little trails. It's all on the level, so I like to take the dog park. Little dog park just right there. It's perfect for me. I don't think you will have that. Well, you have to find out if that, thing, has she called to see if it goes? They don't come over. They're run by the street. That's not, I'm not sure of the house. Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely, especially to the medical things. My sister took them over. And Lucy's been taking it for years and years. Oh, she had, behind Jenny Ed Hospital, there's a Wrigley Hill, and there's a children's nursery on the top. And that bus has taken her there 3 times a week for about 40 years. And she still goes. Gosh. Yeah, well, okay. Well, good luck, absolutely, yeah. You too.
Everything's okay in Columbus
Oh, I'm so glad.
and most of the surrounding area too.
No. Rudy's dealing under the table.
No, they don't cheat out in Colfax County. No.
I didn't realize that.
Okay, pretty lady. I'm on my way. I'll see you next week.
Okay.
As my friend, who was it? Merrill Workhovens that used to say,
Oh, I was so love this boy.
my time is gone for today. Thank you for yours.
Oh,
God, didn't he have a great voice?
there's just not another voice like that.
No, no.
Now, all the old ones were so good, weren't they?
Lyle DeMoss,
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Bryce Brazel. Do you remember? You probably don't remember. He had,
Thompson Holtz.
yeah.
Yeah. I had Thompson Holtz for a while as a volunteer.
I didn't quite measure up to those people, and that's why I got into sales. See ya, babe.
Thanks, Scott. And thank you so much for what you do.
Not a problem.
This is Sybil, may I help you? Hi. Oh, thank you, Paul. You're a lifesaver. All right, appreciate it. See you then. All right, you do now. Bye-bye. What's that? What? And? Oh, good. Behave yourself. All right, sounds good. Have fun. Okay, bye-bye.
Sybil. Share the love. Well, these are super cute. Where did these come from? Jean. That was Jean, right?
Yeah, Jean Gray brought, no,
Davis. Jean Davis, sorry.
Jean Davis.
She said she missed us. They're so cute. Did she make them? Of course she did. How adorable.
Since she missed coming over, so she-
Look, those are erasers.
Yes. She said they came in a big package.
Super cute. She's in, she's in House Blocks.
Yes, there. She was driving in, but I just couldn't-
Oh, but just recently come while there. Oh, sure. Okay. All right, I will go eliminate it. I am the eliminator. We only have one. Future reference. Is there a code or anything, or just a?